Australian workers, from the docks to the factories, have long shown solidarity with the international community of workers. Protests, boycotts and strikes coordinated by unions have been important in bringing public attention to oppression and the violation of workers' rights throughout history. The Australian labour movement has a long and proud history of standing against war and oppression in solidarity with workers of nations throughout the world. During World War I, the Australian unions were united in opposition to the use of conscription to raise an army. The union's stance prevented countless young Australian men from involuntary service and possible death on the battlefields. In 1938, workers with the Waterside Workers' Federation of Australia refused to load scrap iron onto ships bound for Japan, which at the time was an empire pursuing brutal expansion into East Asian nations like China and Korea. During the war years of 1939 to 1945, thousands of Australian unionists signed up to join Australia's war effort. This was overwhelmingly characterised by the labour movement's principles and worker education efforts against the fascist dictatorships of Europe and Asia. During the 1950s, the Australian Council of Trade Unions opposed a system of apartheid in South Africa, conducting anti-apartheid education for workers and forming international labour friendship groups in solidarity with South African trade unionists. In the post-war years, Australia's security has been underpinned by its relationship with the United States. However, during this period, the US has also become a country that asserts its military might globally. The United States intervention in Vietnam, in which Australia was involved, was the most disastrous example of intervention in the past 50 years. The Australian government had a responsibility in the 1960s to urge the USA to negotiate for peace. Instead, it was the Australian labour movement that led the resistance against Australia's involvement in Vietnam. And in recent decades, Australian unions have expressed active solidarity with other human rights and labour struggles in many countries, including the struggle for independence in Timor-Leste, campaigns for human rights and independence in Palestine, supporting resistance to dictatorships in Latin America, and most recently, the struggle to restore democracy in Myanmar. The global justice organisation of the Australian union movement, Union Aid Abroad, today continues to support the struggles of workers and their communities around the world with boycott and divestment campaigns and financial support to a range of worker-led projects and programs. Today, some politicians and media in Australia are again beating the drums of war against China, and it is important for the union movement to take a stand against such incitement and actions. Both China and the United States have massive stockpiles of nuclear weapons, and a minor escalation could very easily lead to a major incident that kills thousands, if not millions of people. It is important for Australian workers to understand that a war with China is not in Australia's interest, nor is it in the interest of the global community of workers. Peace is trade union business. The history of the Australian labour movement's anti-war and anti-oppression campaigns makes clear that a union movement united in solidarity against fear, fascism and hatred begins with showing solidarity in the workplace. Workplace leaders can begin to build international solidarity in their own workplaces in several ways. Workplace organising with a clear anti-war message that highlights the major causes of war, including colonialism, global inequality, climate change and others. And builds bonds of solidarity that unite workers across the world regardless of national identity. Building on worker anti-war education in the workplace to develop industry-level and labour movement-wide anti-war campaigns. Connecting workers with broad anti-war and pro-peace movements through participation in marches, demonstrations and protests. Recognising the dangers of ultranationalist and far-right movements and educating unionists on how to identify and oppose the spread of ultra-right and racist ideas among workers. And raising awareness of Union Aid Abroad's international work and encouraging workers to donate resources where possible. Thanks for watching. To download the fact sheets that accompany these videos, visit carmichaelcentre.org.au.